to the computer. Hello, this is Reverend Barbara Kawa coming to you from the homestead. And tonight we will be talking about archetypes. So archetypes are coming from the book from Caroline Myss. It's going to look backwards here. However, that's the book that we're looking at. And archetypes are the folks that we actually asked to come down with us as part of our sacred contract. That's why the book is called Sacred Contracts. And what it is that these folks, there's 12 of them, and they date back to way back before people, I think, were really populating the earth. So they've been around a very, very long time. And they are those folks that come down with us that we actually chose based on what we need to do while we're here on earth. So that's where we talk about sacred contracts. Now, a contract, from what I understand, is when you are going to be wanting to come down here on earth. And what happens is you go to your guides and all of the council that govern whether or not you're going to be coming down. You actually go to them and say, hey, look, I want to come down to earth. I know it's the hardest place to actually learn stuff. However, I think I can do a good job. I can help. I can learn what I need to learn. I want to come down. And so what happens is our guides are like, are you sure you really want to come down? Is this something you really, really want to do? Because they know how difficult it is to be here on earth, to have to learn our lessons, because that's why we come down. We want to learn our lessons, and we also want to be able to help other people learn their lessons, be on their journey. That's the whole purpose of why we're here. At least that's as much as I know right now. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the contract. So the contract itself is something that's crafted between yourself and your guides and God himself or herself, however you want to say it, the God of your understanding. And the contract has in it all of the different types of things that you want to learn while you're down here. So it could include things like, simple stuff like patience, as in you want to learn how to be more patient. And there are many, many different things that could be listed on there. You might want to learn about relationships. You might want to learn about, how to do many different types of things. So we come down here to be able to learn these things, and therefore then our soul is able to grow. And with this contract, so it's got all the things that you want to learn listed. Now, a lot of us light worker folks, the folks that are here to assist with people's journeys, to serve, to be part of the human culture in helping people with their journeys. And so a lot of us that are light workers, we did what's called, we checked the other box. So we went tick, and we said, we want to do whatever else the God in the universe want us to learn. So a lot of us did that, which means then that God in the universe can assist us with other things that we might be able to learn in addition to what we already agreed to. Now, these contracts can be changed at any time, and this is not the masterclass to talk about how to change them, but they can be changed. So if you, in the contract, there are also relationships that you're going to be part of. So it might be a relationship with a significant other, a parent, child, any type of relationship. It could include people that come into your life for a purpose, to be a mentor or to be a friend, or to even, we might have contracts with the folks that help us, like massage therapists or chiropractors or people like that. So they're in the contract. I mean, it's a pretty hefty contract sometimes, I think. And within that contract, those are the kinds of things that'll be in there. Now, you can change the contract at any time. And again, we can go into that at another masterclass date and talk about sacred contracts in detail. For the purposes of tonight, I just wanted to give you an overview so that you can understand a bit better why we would need archetypes in our contract. So the archetypes themselves are neutral. So they are not good, they are not bad, they are not either of those. They are neutral. They are beings that we have asked to come with us, and we chose them on purpose based on what we are going to do here on Earth. What our life purpose is, what is our mission? In each person, it's different, and some people are more elaborate and some people are not. And that's okay. We chose them specifically to assist us. And we have 12 of them all together. 4 of them are universal between all human beings. The other 8 we chose specifically for our mission here on Earth. And at different times of our life, we will be exploring that new archetype. So we don't have them all online at the same time. However, we have access to them all the time. And they are either of the light or of the dark, depending on what we choose them to be. They don't choose for themselves whether they're going to be of light or dark. It's up to us to decide how we're going to use them. So basically, they're like a tool. So we then will call them to us based on what we need. And it's all unconscious right now. So we'll call them in, and it's unconscious because we've been doing it since the day we were born. We were calling them in one by one. Sometimes we use them together. So we might use 2, 3, 4, as many as we need for whatever situation we're in. We choose whether they're going to be of the light or of the dark, so that it serves whatever purpose we have in that moment. Now, it's based on our own behaviors and what we want them to accomplish. It's actually quite fascinating to understand why we choose particular ones. So we'll start with the 4 that are universal. And I've got these wonderful cards here. You can use, again, unfortunately, it's a little bit backwards. However, these cards are great because it lists both the light attribute and the shadow attribute on each card. So for the first 4 that are universal, and I'm going to read it right off the card, the victim is one of them. And so the light attribute prevents you from letting yourself be victimized or victimizing others. The shadow attribute is playing the victim for positive feedback in the form of pity and the inability to maintain personal boundaries. So you may have heard yourself in both roles, where either yourself or someone that you know may be being victimized by someone, and you might step in and prevent that from happening. And that's when you're in the light. The shadow attributes, if you've ever seen at workplaces where you've got those folks who constantly complain that the boss does this and the boss does that, or a coworker does this and a coworker does that. And they're doing it in such a way that it shows that they're the ones who are the victim. Oh my gosh, look at what my boss did. They did this and that and the other thing. We've all heard those people who complain about that. Even people who complain about illnesses, and I'm talking complain, not relaying to you, okay, I'm not feeling well, stuff like this, where like my aunts used to do that all the time. They would get together and do what I call a bitch fest about who has the worst illnesses. So then they would be sitting there, oh no, I'm the one who has the worst. I've got this, 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 and this. And then the other one would be, oh no, I've got it even worse than you. I've got this, 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 and this, plus that. And so they would do this whole victimizing thing instead of taking responsibility for, the illnesses. And I'm not talking about, taking responsibility means that you're aware that you have this illness and you're taking care of it. So instead of being the victim, you're going to whatever health professionals you need to be able to then actually get better. So you're no longer the victim. The next one is the child. Now there's different types of child in each of us. So depending on what it is that we decided is the type of child we wanted to represent us here. So in the case of myself, I chose the divine child. There's the wounded child. There's 4 of them, I believe, altogether. So the divine child, the light attributes are innocence, purity, and redemption. Suggests a special connection with the divine. The shadow attribute is an inability to defend oneself against negative forces. So that's the child that I have chosen, and I can use that child in either the light or the shadow. And anybody who has that, a divine child in particular, will go from one to the other depending on what it is. The child attributes also translate into adulthood. So it's not like you leave them behind. What you do is, in certain circumstances, you might use that child in the light so that you talk about your special connection to the divine that happened to you even as a child. And the shadow attribute, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. The inability to defend oneself against negative forces. So it speaks for itself that you feel powerless, as an example. And so we use these attributes depending on what we want or need. So as an example, as a divine child, you might be in a situation, say you have parents who are very negative and are always telling you stuff and really making you feel bad and stuff like this. So you might feel like you can't defend yourself. And so therefore you go into that divine child not being able to defend myself and make it more difficult for you to actually get out of that spot. The other thing you might do instead is go, okay, well, you know what? I'm in this situation. I'm going to stand up for myself. Now, little kids, it's sometimes hard for that to happen. So it's part of the learning, part of the sacred contract. The next one we'll talk about is the prostitute, which is part of the 4. So the ones that I'm talking about are part of the 4 that are universal. So the prostitute, the light attribute, accentuates the challenge of surviving without negotiating the power of your spirit. The shadow attribute places material considerations and security above self-empowerment. So someone who is using their prostitute in light will make sure that they can survive, that they get what they need without compromising themselves. So we're going to use the prostitute in its the way that we know the word, what it means. So someone who actually goes out and exchanges sexual favors for money. So that would be more about the shadow aspect of the prostitute. So people might decide that, like the prostitute in shadow, may decide that they can be sold to the highest bidder. So basically, you're like a mercenary, or so here's a great example. The boss asks you to do overtime, and you know that you would rather be home with your family and with your children and possibly a spouse. Instead, you decide that you're going to take the overtime and you do it over and over and over and over and over again. So I'm not talking about the occasional, let's take some overtime and let's, beef up our bank account. I'm talking about whatever the boss wants, you'll do it because they're going to pay you, not because you have the feeling that you want to actually support your family. So that's when it's used in shadow. But if it's in light, that's where, if your boss asks you to do overtime, you'll then consult with your spouse and say, hey, you know what, boss asked me to do overtime. Is that okay with you? And so you're actually then really making sure that your spirit isn't compromised, that you're not doing it just because you want whatever you want. And all of us have done these different things. So it's not like anybody's exempt. It's just now being aware that you have these and how are you using them? And you can recognize them. Going through the book, you're really going to be able to get a grasp of what it really means to have these different archetypes. And so the last one is the saboteur. The light attribute highlights your fear of self-empowerment and changes it, and the changes it would bring to your life. So it highlights the fear, and then also the changes that the self-empowerment would bring to your life. So it helps you to actually find out ways that you're sabotaging yourself and brings them to the light so that you can heal them and change them, and how it's going to affect your life when you heal it and change it. The shadow attribute induces self-destructive behavior or the desire to undermine others. So the saboteur either will sabotage yourself or could sabotage others. So jealousy can sometimes propel people to sabotaging others because they feel like they lack what that person has and possibly can't actually get it. So they may do that. Or, and again, these are all unconscious, so you may not even realize you're doing it, okay? Being very clear. You may not even realize you're sabotaging your own life, or maybe you do. And sometimes we don't know why we did it. And sometimes it's only after it's done that we realize it's done. So when you're looking at like sabotaging your own life, you might do it like, as an example, a friend of mine, she was getting fed up with her job, but she would not quit because in her mind, if she quit her job, that would mean then that she was without income and that she would have to go find another job. Her family would be upset with her, so on and so forth. So instead of actually quitting the job, she actually sabotaged it for herself and enabled someone else, to actually perform some lies and stuff like this, and a cover up of things. And they got found out and she got fired. So in essence, she actually was able to she was actually able to get out of that job without having to quit. And so then what happens there is that because she got fired, she saved face. Her family and friends would be like, oh no, that's too bad you got fired. Oh no. And she'd get all the sympathy, which could possibly make her feel better because she's in the victim archetype as well. So she'll go from the saboteur, because she's already done the sabotaging, and go into victim so that people would feel sorry for her, and then she'd be off the hook. Therefore, no more of that. And so, that's how we would use the saboteur. Now, for the other 8 is something that when you read the book, you will be able to then understand a bit better how you actually choose the other archetypes. And there's many of them in there. I think there's like 30 or something archetypes. And the way that I did it was I actually, wrote them all out on little cards, or you can use these cards. And, you can go through them. And what I did was I read their description and see if at any point in my life I acted in that way, either in the light or in the dark, in shadow. And so then I went through that, and it enabled me to go, nope, not that one. Nope, not that one. Right. And then I whittled it down, and then I made lists. I crossed certain ones off the list. The trick also is, if there are any in there that, you're really, that's definitely not me. It probably is. The sad truth is that the one that we are more, that we don't feel good about is probably the one that is ours. So one of mine that I wasn't too keen on was I have the destroyer. And the destroyer, the light attributes are releasing what is potentially destructive and preparing for new life. That's pretty damn good. However, the shadow attributes, intoxication with destructive power, destroying others' dreams or potential. I was looking at that and I'm going, no, I would never do that. However, it is possible that at some point I did. I'm more about destroying, like when I used it in shadow, it wasn't so much about other people. It was more about destroying my own life when, and for me, it was when I would be successful. If I was getting too close to success, I would want to destroy my life. That sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? However, that's how I felt in certain situations based on what happened in my past, that I developed a limiting decision or belief about success and what it would do for me. So at that point, when I learned about these, I then was able to go, okay, so no more destroying my life. It is now time to look at destroyer and go, okay, I can use destroyer in my life to destroy those beliefs, those blocks, all of that kind of stuff, instead of destroying my life. And so that's what made it really, really interesting for me, was to be able to go through all of mine and learn where I'm using it in my life in the positive and where I'm using it in the negative. So that really helped me to understand, and even to look back on my life and go, okay, so where did I use which? And it's not to beat myself up over it or go, oh, I shouldn't have done that or anything like this. Remember, We're down here to learn. So the best thing to do is to realize, you know what? I'm going to learn from that. All right, so these are the situations where I destroyed stuff for myself. Okay, so now I'm going to make sure that I take care of the trigger so that I don't do it again. And the other thing to be aware of is how we actually use the different archetypes together. There are certain ones that you do not want to have work together. So if you were to look at my destroyer, you definitely wouldn't want it to be with any of those four, because if at any time you decide to use them in the negative, holy shit, they can do a lot of destruction. I mean, think about it. If you were in the victim state, you might want to destroy your life because you feel that, you know, being the victim is a horrible place to be, and so you'll do that. Or you could be in the prostitute state, and therefore the two of them will go out and they'll destroy their life by prostituting themselves, not in the traditional sense, in the, you know, like they'll just do whatever they need to do for money or gifts or whatever it is. So there are certain ones you do not want to have at the bar together, as they say. So you have to be aware of which ones would go together. So as an example, divine child and possibly destroyer could go together, because the divine child would remind the destroyer about the innocence and, you know, the purity and stuff like this. So then destroyer would stay in the light and release what could be potentially harmful. That would be a really great pairing to have. If you do three of them together, so I have also, I have healer, I have detective, I have guide. Now imagine if you put together detective, healer, and destroyer. So if you decided to put those three together, imagine the good that they could do together. So as an example, if I were with a client, those three would be a good three to have at the same time, using them towards helping my client, because the detective would figure out what's going on, what's wrong, what do they need help with, and be very good at detecting exactly what's going on. Then you could have the destroyer come in and destroy the blocks that the detective found. Ooh, that would be pretty good. Then you'd have healer come in right after and heal whatever has been destroyed and bring it to a new life. Now that would be a really great combination to have together. So this is the power that they have to help us. Imagine if you could, before you're talking to, you know, like say you have a coaching client, or what if it's before you go to work and you then decide which archetypes you're going to take with you to work, depending on what job you have. That would be pretty cool. And so to keep them in the light or work them in the shadow, what that is it's all about our intention. So do you intend to use them in the light? So as an example, if I were having a coaching client in front of me and I had those three, my intention is to use those three in the light so that I could help my client. And that's how you make the decision, instead of allowing it to the archetypes for you to choose them and choose whether they're in light or shadow based on what you are feeling in that moment. So it's the awareness of which ones you've got and how you're going to use them. And that's what makes it so powerful, is that you're able to then craft the way you want to use archetypes. And therefore, then you have more control over how you'd like your life to go. Isn't it great to have other beings of love and light that you can rely on to help you with whatever it is you need to do? I think that's pretty darn cool. and a lot of fun as well, because now you have choice and you're able to bring them in to help you fulfill your mission, to help you with your family life, to help you with your health, all kinds of different ways to be able to use the archetypes. And it's very, very beneficial to be able to do that, to actually have these beings. Lots of people don't realize they have them. Now imagine if you actually went through the book and figured out which ones you had and how you could actually use them. So that's a basic overview of the archetypes and how you can use them. I like these cards because it gave me a really strong sense of the light attributes and the shadow attributes and how they can be used. It also helped, you know, when I was trying to figure everybody out. There's also another really cool feature. It's a actual wheel that has the different areas of life in it and which archetype rules that part of life. Oh, that would be a really great tool to know. Oh, so my divine child rules my health. So that means then I view health through the divine child's eyes, as an example. So therefore, then we can have a greater understanding of how to use that to our advantage. And when do we then go into shadow when it becomes part of our health, and how to switch it back out to the light. So that's another cool feature of this wonderful book. And no, I don't have shares in the book. I just think that it's fantastic. And it really explains a lot of how we will do things in our life and why some things go awry. So it's very helpful. And you can sometimes recognize some of the archetypes in others. I've done that where I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You have the warrior archetype for sure. You know, and it's based on, like, the warrior archetype is the archetype that takes no prisoners, if you know what I mean. They'll be the ones to fight for you and with you. They'll be right there to make sure that, you know, nothing happens. They're the ones that the friend, I have a friend, I know she's a warrior for sure, because if anybody tries to slight me or hurt me or anything like that, she's ready to go to war with them. She's like, all right, just tell me where they are and I'll take care of them. We've had all of those types of friends. So, you know, and sometimes I have to pull her back a little bit because, you know, she wants to help so badly. So that's basically what archetypes are about. And if you have any questions, please let me know, and we can talk about what questions you might have and what you need to know about archetypes. And so that's it for today. This is Reverend Barbara Kawa, and you can reach me at www.barbarakawa.com. And I look forward to speaking with you. Thank you.